Episode number 62 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. My guest today is Jenna Longoria. Jenna Longoria, aka the Period Guru, is a board-certified functional nutrition practitioner specializing in women's hormone health. She was listed by the Huffington Post as one of the top 20 new health writers to follow in 2017. Her work has been featured in Mind Body Green, NBC, The Elephant Journal, SXSW, and she is the author of 7 Steps to a Healthier You, an Attainable Guide to Health. Jenna helps women reclaim their hormones by working with them to achieve pain-free, regular periods and optimize their fertility. Through her private practice, she helps women balance their hormones with functional nutrition and diagnostic testing. Jenna is a firm believer that the right diet and lifestyle can put any hormonal condition into remission. So welcome to the podcast, Jenna.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
So can you share how your diagnosis of PCOS led you to what you now use to help women balance their hormones?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, the diagnosis of PCOS took me like about 10 years to formally get. So, when I was younger, about 13, I was put on the birth control pill because I was presenting some symptoms that go hand in hand with PCOS, but because PCOS is an umbrella of symptoms, sometimes it's misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed, which is what we see a lot. So the doctors just put me on hormonal birth control pill, which then covered up all the symptoms, right? So it wasn't until a decade later when I decided to quit the birth control pill that I discovered I had PCOS. And that was actually a really enlightening experience because I finally had an answer for everything that I had been going through growing up with the, insulin resistance, the anxiety, the mood swings, all of those things that are akin to PCOS. So, I went back to the doctor and all they wanted to do, like the only solution was always, the birth control pill.
Right.
And that I just knew that there had to be another solution besides synthetic hormones. And I delved deeper into it, and it eventually led me to go back to school to study nutrition and eventually women's health because I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted to hear from healthcare professionals. I felt very underrepresented. I felt rushed when I was in the office with the doctor. I didn't feel like I was being listened to. And so I took matters into my own hand and I did a lot of reading. I started with, I think, the Period Repair Manual by Dr. Laura Briden was one of the first books I read that opened my eyes to this world of, holistic healing and functional nutrition, and that, periods didn't have to be painful. And that, even though it's common, it's not normal. And so I started practicing some of these, changing my diet and taking some supplements and using testing to find out exactly what was going on. And I've been in remission for 4 years now.
That's amazing.
It really is. And, every doctor told me growing up, like, you're going to have fertility challenges or, the birth control pill is your only option. When you're ready to get pregnant, you can get off of it. And I'm so glad I didn't listen to them because, my life would be a mess right now if I had.
Interesting. We have very parallel stories because years ago, I used to be an architect and I wouldn't get my period for like 3 months at a time. And when I did, it was excruciatingly painful. And I went at 17, I wasn't even sexually active and they put me on the birth control pill. And I remember thinking like, this just doesn't seem to be an answer. Like I was really, really surprised. So it was the same kind of thing. I was like really surprised, but I was too young to really know what to do about it.
Mhm.
So it's very similar, and I hear this story so many times. So many people go through this. It's crazy. And then years later, when I was 25, I finally said I got to do something. And my mom heard about an acupuncturist, and I went to him, and he like got me to have my period the same day I came home, and I got
Wow.
my period, and I've been regular since. It's the
That's
craziest
amazing.
thing. It was like he
Wow.
unblocked something. I don't know. I mean, this guy he's a genius. Dr. Lee, he actually specialized in gynecology back in China.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was really amazing. He put me on herbs and everything. So it was a combination, but that's what got me to do what I'm doing today, which is acupuncture. But it is insane, because when you're younger and you go to a doctor, like you had said, like you're hearing from these professionals in the white coats, and you think that they're going to know everything, and when they tell you this is the only solution or there is no cure for this, most of the time, I mean, you and I guess kind of went on this hunch that that just doesn't seem right, but
Mhm.
a lot of people may not know that, like, and they believe what they're being told. And when somebody says, with authority and lots of years of study, you can't do anything about this, a lot of people believe that. It's a shame.
Exactly. It is a shame, and it also is a shame because they put into our heads that it's a scare, it's scary. You get this PCOS diagnosis and it's overwhelming, and they're putting this false information into our heads, not on purpose to be malicious, but they're like,
No,
"Oh, well
it's not.
here is, you're going to have issues having kids, when you're going to have fertility challenges." When actually it's like PCOS is the easiest thing to fix. Like it's the most common fertility
Hmm.
challenge present in reproductive age women, but it's the
Hmm.
easiest one to fix.
Right. Because diet is so huge with PCOS.
Huge. I mean,
Huge, yeah.
and that's why, like, I always tell people, like, if you're the doctors that are prescribing metformin, I'm like, well, at least they're one step ahead of other doctors who are just putting on the
Right.
birth control pill. At least they realize, oh, there's some
Right. That's a
insulin
good point.
resistance going on. But then
Yeah.
metformin isn't necessarily the best solution because, you know, that's just kind of silencing the symptom. It's like, why is insulin resistance happening in the first place?
Right.
Let's look at their diet. Like I remember I met someone I was at a PCOS awareness meeting somewhere. Like this fertility clinic was hosting this PCOS event, and I was mingling with some of the women there, and got talking with this one girl, and she, had been trying, her and her husband, to conceive for 5 years. They'd gone through 2 IVF rounds, and it wasn't working. And I was like, oh, well, have you ever, tried changing your diet? And she was like, no.
Hmm.
I was like, no one's ever talked to you about, stabilizing your blood sugar and eating, about, changing your diet? And she's like, no, not once. And to
Hmm.
me, that's
Yeah.
that's just infuriating, and that's a disservice, and that's just lazy medicine. It's like, yeah, we'll take all your money and we're gonna put you
Right.
through this IVF that's so expensive,
Yeah.
but we're not even gonna, attempt to fix a few things or tweak a few things that can help you have more successful outcomes with your IVF, or actually make where it makes IVF obsolete. You could ovulate and have a baby on your own.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's definitely crazy to me. And it's traumatic too. The process could be very traumatic and expensive, and so many different costs.
I know.
It's
Mhm.
crazy. And something as simple as food. it's
Food is
it's
medicine. I
basic.
know.
It's like,
It is so basic. And, it's just, that's why I felt compelled whenever because I started with like having 4 periods a year. And, I got on the journey, and then, then it began like I was ovulating 6 times a year. And then the next year I
Mhm.
was ovulating 10 times. And it was just, it wasn't like I bounced from like going from having PCOS and having all these symptoms to overnight not having them. It was a
Mhm.
journey. And it was a beautiful journey because I discovered so much, and I realized, I felt compelled to share this with other people. It's like, if I'm getting
Yeah.
these results, then other people can get these results. And no birth control required. PCOS is not caused by a birth control pill deficiency.
Right. I love that. That's great. That is a really nice way to put it.
Yeah, so that's just kind of my journey going back to it, and seeing that this was possible, And now everyone's different with PCOS, and I realize that because there are different types. So not everyone's
Mhm.
going to be, have the same journey,
Yeah.
but it does always start with stabilizing blood sugar levels.
Right. And so, what were your symptoms?
My symptoms were, well, that was one thing. So I didn't have polycystic ovaries. And you know how
Right,
all
which
doctors,
is a
yeah,
common misconception because people think that you have to have that to
exactly.
have
Like,
PCOS. Yeah.
it's mind boggling. So just because I didn't have polycystic ovaries on an ultrasound, I didn't have PCOS, and it was something else. They gave me the birth control pill, and um, yeah, and it's like, not all women know that you don't have to have polycystic ovaries to have PCOS, and not all women with PCOS have polycystic ovaries. And it's really
Right.
common for women, like 25% of women will have, or 25, I think it's 25% of the time women will have polycystic ovaries in their life in certain,
Right.
cycles, because it just happens. And so, someone could go in for their ultrasound when they're just happening to have a cycle with polycystic ovaries. And then their doctor tells them that they have PCOS because of an ultrasound reading, which is
Right.
crazy. And so
Yeah.
I didn't have polycystic ovaries at any of the time that I had ultrasounds, but I had blood sugar dysregulation. Like even when I was super healthy, doing the right things in quotes, because everything bio individuality, there's a health food could be someone's poison, right? I
Right.
was still
Absolutely.
having these pre-diabetic fasting blood sugar, ranges. And I was like, what is going on? There was some type of inflammation and insulin
Yeah.
resistance going on in the body. And so that was the main one. And then anxiety. I mean, I had really bad anxiety because of, the progesterone deficiency, most likely because I wasn't ovulating.
Right.
80% of women with PCOS suffer from anxiety or depression. So, and the mood swings. So, because I had the blood sugar, instability, I was very sensitive to sugar. So, I would get, highs and lows and hangry. It's like I was
Yeah.
that person that always had to have snacks in their purse, or had to, like if I didn't eat, I just turned into like the Incredible Hulk, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I know some people like that that don't have PCOS, but
Yeah, well, yeah, and I saw this like ad the other day, and it was like a billboard, and it was like hangry, pull over, and it was for like and I was like, no one should be getting hangry. Like this is something that we should not
Yes,
be
that's a
getting.
good point. You're right. We should
Uh,
eat foods that will sustain us for a longer time and not give us spikes and, like good fuel.
Good fuel, exactly. That's why,
Yeah.
like, one of the things I always ask my patients, I'm like, okay, so when you get hungry, is it like I have to eat right now, or the whole world's going to end, and I'm gonna like punch someone in the face, or is it like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, I'm starting to get hungry and I could eat now?
Right,
Because that's
right.
really how it should be, the latter. It's like, oh yeah,
Absolutely.
it's time to eat, not like our mood, our cravings control us and our blood sugar controls us. It should be steady, which is really one of the things why I really love intermittent fasting. And I started that 5 years ago, and that was a really um, important piece of the puzzle for me in balancing my blood
Mhm.
sugar.
Yeah.
And I know everybody has different opinions on
I
intermittent
know. I
fasting.
know. Everybody has a different opinion.
Yeah, and also, like, the thing is intermittent fasting isn't, like, just one thing, there's so many different ways to intermittent fast.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, just so you know, because fasting's healthy in general. We've been doing this for thousands of years. It's good for your body to get a break. So it's not a bad thing, but it depends on your body type too.
Yeah,
That's what I
exactly,
found.
and, like, adrenals, like, if someone comes to me and their HPA axis is all messed up and they're, like, suffering from adrenal fatigue, I'm not gonna have them do long fasts because that's not
Right.
gonna support them. But also, I do still, even with someone in that case, I think 12 hours is the bare minimum. We should be giving
Hmm.
our body a 12-hour break, not shoveling
Hmm.
food in our mouth every 3
Yeah.
hours. Like,
Yeah.
we're just, as humans, we've evolved into these, like, we are constantly eating. We're constantly eating because
Yeah.
what we're eating has gone down in value, and it's just quick fake food that gives us a quick sugar rush.
Right.
It's not sustaining us. It's not giving us the building blocks we need. So everybody is going around having to eat every 2 to 3 hours, or a slave
Yeah.
to,
Right.
to their food. And if you think about, like, it's really fasting, and like you said, we've been doing it for thousands of years. Even
Yeah.
our grandparents, like, Like they would wake up and have breakfast and go to work. Back in the day, it wasn't like you had like Taco Cabana, McDonald's, and all these fast food choices. It was like there was
Right.
like a canteen at work, or
Yeah.
you went home for lunch or you brought your lunch to work. It wasn't like a constant stream of options for snacks. And then everyone ate dinner
Absolutely. Yeah.
together. So there was like a
Right.
12-hour fasting period.
Yeah.
And I think that's the
Absolutely.
minimum for everyone. And I think another misconception is that to fast means you have to go keto, which is completely, you don't have to be keto to do intermittent fasting.
Right. Keto meaning not keto diet. Keto
Yeah, like
meaning
they,
you go into ketosis because your
yeah, I mean,
body's
you can
burning
go into
fat.
ketosis with the intermittent fasting, but like, I guess following that, you don't have to follow a keto diet to do intermittent fasting.
Right. Right. And what do you suggest for people who do have insulin resistance? Like what are the first things that you suggest?
Buying a glucometer,
Hmm.
definitely. Being proactive with that, taking your fasting blood sugar every morning after you eat, making sure, so you can kind of be your own health detective and like, oh, how did my body respond to that oatmeal? How did my body
Right.
respond to that smoothie? How did my body
That's
respond?
good.
Because it's
Yeah.
going to be different for everyone. And also the blood sugar, the glucometer, if your blood sugar spikes, it can also be a sign of like a food sensitivity and your body's like
Right.
inflamed. So that gives, I would say, buy a glucometer and also look into intermittent fasting. It's
Right.
such a great and easy way. You start with 12 hours, then you build up for an hour, go 13, go 14, see how your body responds, listen to your body. And some people like find a magic spot, like 15 hours is good for them, or sometimes and the beauty of it, it doesn't have to be rigid.
Hmm.
Maybe like one day, I always say, like, hey, listen to your body. If you've been fasting for 15 hours and you're not hungry at all, and you feel great and your cognitive function is on fire and you're alert and you have so much energy and you're just not feeling eating, well, don't eat until you're ready to break your fast and your body starts getting that, like, hey, I need to eat now.
Right.
Or don't make yourself go 18 hours because you read somewhere that you need to do 18 hours 4 days a week. Like, do what's right for your body. We're all different.
Yeah. That's totally true. I mean, one man's food is another man's poison, like you said before, and the same thing with also how long you can prolong it and how you feel, because ultimately everybody is so different that you can't go with
Exactly.
a general. Yeah.
Mhm. And everyone's so different and we have different needs. So like, like I said earlier, like someone whose adrenals are, not, working very well, their HPA axis is just super low. They're not outputting enough cortisol, they're tired. Like someone like that is going to need to eat protein more often
Hmm.
and not go for long fasting periods. It's going to make
Right.
them burn out even more. So there are
Right.
so many different situations for it. So that's why it's really important to work with a practitioner.
Yeah. Exactly. So they can cater it specifically to you.
Exactly. Yeah. And like testing and not guessing. That's another thing with
Right.
like supplements, like especially with PCOS. Like I mean, I see it all the time. Like today I saw it. It's like, do you use the Dutch test?
I'm gonna start actually.
Okay.
That's
It's
one thing that
oh
I
my
haven't done, but I heard amazing things about it.
It's amazing. It's just so
Yeah.
insightful. It just changes everything. And so, when you get a blood test at the doctor, it's showing your overall like testosterone, progesterone, and this is for the sex hormones,
Hmm.
testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen. And they could be in normal ranges, but with the Dutch, they're showing how they're metabolizing. So I get all the time women with PCOS that have been told they don't have PCOS because their testosterone, yeah, is normal. No doubt about it.
Hmm.
I'll look at the
Right.
testosterone, okay,
Right.
normal. But then when you see how it's metabolizing, your testosterone can metabolize towards two pathways, and one of them is more potent. It turns the testosterone into DHT, which causes these androgenic issues like
Hair loss.
cyclic acne, yeah, hair loss, hirsutism, things like that. And
Hmm.
so, just today I had a client who had normal testosterone, and I mean, all of it was metabolizing towards the PCOS route. So that's
Right.
why, so for so many years, and she's been complaining of all these symptoms, but the doctor's like, yeah, but you don't have PCOS because you don't have polycystic ovaries and you don't have
Right.
high testosterone. And that's where the Dutch test comes in.
Yeah, that's great. Such a great thing. So I was going to ask you another controversial topic is gluten. I wanted to
Mm.
see what your thought on that is.
Yeah, so like I really am team no gluten.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, for me personally, I had so much success cutting it out of my diet. And it was one of those things that it didn't happen overnight. Like I was still like having like pizza once a week. So I was like, I deserve this. And I love pizza and let me have pizza once a week. And
Mm-hmm.
but then I wasn't really getting the results I wanted in regards to my charting my cycles. And it wasn't until like I completely cut it out of my diet that I really felt better than ever and wasn't having inflammation. That said, I did do a comprehensive stool test that showed that was proof that my gluten antibodies were through the roof. My body just
Really?
does, yeah,
Wow.
my body just doesn't respond well to gluten.
But you
And
don't have celiac, right?
I don't have
Or do
celiac
you?
disease, no, but I mean, like,
But that's a really good point to make here, actually, because a lot of people think that you have to have celiac in
yes.
order to be sensitive to gluten.
Exactly, and it's not the case, and so there's a few things on it. I'm not like 100% no gluten for everyone. For me, I do believe that women with PCOS do better because without gluten, because gluten is inflammatory. It
Mm-hmm.
promotes leaky gut,
Right.
which
Mm-hmm.
we don't want at all. Like if we already have this disposition towards inflammation and insulin resistance, first of all, gluten is in things that are high and that have a high insulin index, right? Let's think about what gluten is
Mm-hmm.
in: pasta, bread. Well, should we be eating those things anyway with our blood
Right. Right.
sugar issues? No.
Yeah.
And then also they're inflammatory. So I like to cut it out with my patients for at least like 90 days, see how their body responds. Do a test to see if they actually do have a sensitivity to gluten.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, then I'm like, okay, well, after 90 days, it's up to you. You can start incorporating it back into your diet and see how you feel. And also not having a lack mentality. So, if you're in France, eat a croissant. If you're in,
Right.
if whatever, like eat gluten sometimes. But for some women, when they're in like like a critical care, like they're healing from something that's, especially in the beginning phases of PCOS to get better, I'm like, treat your body as you would like you're in remission from cancer or something like that, like really just omit
Mm-hmm.
it for a long period of time until you heal your gut. Because a lot of times
Takes time.
it takes time. Like once your gut is healed and that integrity of the intestinal lining is healed, then yeah, you can
Mm-hmm.
probably have gluten every once in a while and not feel the effects so much. Not someone
Right.
like me. Like me, I've always, my whole life, I have responded poorly to gluten. And then I could go on a tangent too. Like what part is that? Is it really the gluten, or is it because I have the MTHFR gene? So I don't process folic acid and they fortify all wheat
Oh, that's a good
in the
point. Yeah.
US with folic acid, and also pesticides like
Oh, yeah.
Monsanto's
The
Roundup.
worst.
They spray
Yeah.
it on wheat. So
Oh, yeah.
it's
Big
a
time.
chemical storm.
I think that that's one of the reasons why so many people now all of a sudden can't eat it.
Yeah,
I mean, they're having an issue
absolutely.
with wheat. I mean, I do. I know for sure. I mean, I remember when I was younger, and this is back when I had irregular periods, but then I started getting regular because it was around that time. I was in my 20s, mid 20s, and I worked in New York City. I'd go downstairs, have the pizza. It was amazing. And every time I'd have a really good sushi place and a really good pizza place. So every time I had sushi, I had so much energy after work,
Yeah.
after lunch, at work. And every time I had pizza or any kind of bread, my energy would sink. I was so exhausted. And I remember feeling like that for just in general, my energy, I had I have way more energy now in my 40s than I did in my 20s,
Oh my
which
gosh,
is
I totally
crazy.
agree. I feel like every year I get more energy and I feel better than I did when I was like my 20s were like my worst,
It's insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And I look back, I'm like, what? And so I remember one time having like going gluten free, and then I bought gluten free pizza to make it home. And I remember thinking after I ate it, I'm going to be exhausted because I just associated pizza with exhausted.
Mhm.
And I wasn't exhausted. That was the craziest aha for me. I was like, oh my God, I'm not tired. And then
Yeah.
I realized it was the gluten.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's where like, listening to your body, having a food journal, getting the glucometer, like
Hmm.
after you eat pizza, what does your body do? How does your blood sugar respond? These are all great ways. But I do feel like if someone is wanting to get better, like they owe it to themselves to cut out gluten for like at least 90 days just to see
Right.
how
At
their
least
body
try.
feels. Yeah. Because sometimes I get people,
Exactly.
they're like, oh, well, I've already I know I don't have a gluten issue because I cut it out for a while and it didn't do anything. And I'm like, well, how long did you cut it out? They're like, a week and a half. I'm like, that's not going to
Right.
do anything.
No,
Like,
it's not.
you can
Yeah.
eat gluten and your body will respond to it for like, 6 to 8 weeks can create
Right.
antibodies towards it. So it's like, you really have to give it up for a longer period of time.
Absolutely. And it changes also the tissues in your gut, everything like it
Hmm.
like grows back if you've had an issue that's been like an assault to your gut. But I will say too that a lot of times people will say, well, I decreased gluten.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's my favorite. Yeah. I know. It's like it really is an all or nothing thing. I'm like, well, you might as well. Like I had one.
Just have
They were
a
like,
pizza
oh
every
well,
night.
they're like, I only had a half of the piece of cake, so I was like, you might as well eaten the whole thing and enjoyed yourself.
Right. Good
You're
point.
like, just you might as well just if you're
just,
gonna eat gluten, just
just have
go
it.
out, just eat it. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't limit yourself.
exactly. Yeah. And it's funny. So sometimes I do have my cheats, like I'll go out and I'll eat, but I'll tell you, like, the next couple of days, I'm zonked. It like really drains my energy. It's crazy. But now I can see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like it's when it changes to like I can't eat that, which is how I know I was in the beginning when I first gave up gluten. It was like a punishment. I'm like, oh, I miss it. I want it. To where
Yeah.
like after I realized how vibrant and amazing I could feel, I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, I don't want that. Like that would be
Yeah.
punishment. If I was like stuck somewhere where like they had pasta and pizza and that was the only option, I wouldn't be like, yay, I have no choice. I have to eat. I'd be like, gross. I do not want to eat
You'd
that because I'm gonna feel like
prolong your
crap.
intermittent
Yes,
fasting.
exactly. I would totally just prolong it. So
Like, I'm just going to add more hours to this. That's
yeah.
funny. So yeah, well, we talked about the pill for painful periods. It's
Mhm.
crazy. That is definitely something that is an issue with a lot of people, and it's still an issue till this day. It's crazy to me because I feel like we should have come a long way in general. Like that they should have realized at this point that it's not a solution, but a lot of women out there, and probably a lot of listeners, have also been given the same suggestion as we have of just using the pill. And what I was going to mention is, from your perspective, I mean, it takes a while to get the period back to like completely normal after the period, after the pill.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just I don't understand why we use it as a panacea for women's health just to treat everything.
Yeah. And it takes time just to get back to no, I mean, from my perspective too, from Chinese medicine
Mhm.
perspective, like just to get the body to self-regulate and go back into the cycle, because women are
Yeah.
so cyclical.
Well, that's why, like,
It,
doctors are like, "Oh, when you're ready to get pregnant, just get off of the pill and everything will will regulate itself," which, and oh my God, there's this horrible article. I won't name the author, but it's this doctor that writes a column for the New York Times. And
mm-hmm.
she's just like anti-period. She, there was this article.
Anti-period.
Yeah, I mean, there was this article, just the last one. She actually wrote one called Period, No Period. Now, and then there was an article where a mother wrote about her 12-and-a-half-year-old, like, she's inconvenienced by her period because of her sports and she just doesn't want them. And what's an option? And this doctor was like, oh, well, you can just give her the Depo-Provera shot or birth control. And I'm just like, I cannot believe someone would give advice to a 12-year-old to just take hormonal birth control pill because your period inconveniences you. And in the
Wow.
article, she was like, yeah, just assume that your period will come back right when you're done with the birth control pill.
For
I'm like, you
12
know what?
years old?
Yeah. And I'm like, how dare you tell women to just assume that your period, your ovulation will just pick up right when you get off the birth control pill. Tell that to the thousands of women
Wow.
who are having post-birth control syndrome and don't ovulate for like 2 years after they get off the
Right.
pill, and they get off of it right when they're ready to conceive. And then it
Yeah.
doesn't happen. I mean, I'm sure you see it all the time. I see it all the
All
time.
the time. Yeah.
And
I,
it's just it's destroying. It's just yeah, it's compromising our fertility.
that's reckless. I mean, I try to respect everybody's background. Everybody comes from different things and they have different perspectives, but in my opinion, that's reckless for a 12 to tell a 12-year-old to do that, but it
Yeah, it
happens
is reckless.
all the
Oh my
time.
gosh. I know. It was outrageous, that article. And I don't know why the New York Times promotes this I don't know. Anyway, so that's a whole nother podcast
Yeah,
with the New
no, for
York
sure.
Times.
But I will say, I mean, it's just that's mainstream for you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's mainstream. If you want to learn more, you really have to dig deeper and like really learn and educate yourself. And because a lot of times I find the best solutions are the most simple ones and the
Hmm.
cheapest, really.
Absolutely. And also it's like, let's talk about our hormones. Like putting out the birth control pill in our bodies. And I'm not saying I'm anti-birth control pill. Like if it's being used for pregnancy prevention, then great. That's what it's meant to do. I'm
Right.
talking about all of the women, the 60% that are taking hormonal birth control to regulate, in quotes, periods or get rid of acne, to I mean, get rid of painful periods. This
Hmm.
isn't the solution. Our hormones are important. We shouldn't casually flip them off with a switch. We actually
Hmm.
need them. They influence our emotions, our appetite, our choice in sexual partner, our everything, our energy
Yeah.
levels. So shutting them off and pumping our body with synthetic hormones is going to have repercussions. And I just don't understand why it's taking the medical community so long
Yeah.
to kind of like realize this. And then there are still so many doctors like this educated OBGYN who writes to the New York Times. It's like, no, you don't need a period. So if you want to take birth control pill, that's great. And then when you're ready to have babies, get off of it. So how are you still giving that advice in 2019?
That's what I'm saying. That's what boggles my mind is that we're at this point. I mean, this was like way back when I was 17. That's a long time ago. I'm not going to give my age, but I mean, we're talking 20 years ago more, and I just like even then it didn't seem right, but I'm thinking like, I mean, this is 20 years. Like we know so much better. I mean, it's obvious at this point. It's like anybody can access that. Like you go Google and find out that you can change things with diet, and it's just
Yeah.
like I said,
I
it
have you
boggles
read
my mind.
if you haven't read it yet, put it on your book list. The This
Hmm.
Is Your Brain on Birth Control by Sarah Hill, PhD. And she's a
I'll definitely check it out.
revolutionary psychiatrist who
Hmm.
studies the female brain. And she's just
Oh
made this
wow.
book came out a few months ago, and it is just mind blowing. It just
Oh, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's an excellent book.
Oh wow, yeah, that's definitely it's all stuff. I mean, we put this in our body, and I did me as well, for years on and off, and we don't really know what it does. We just kind of
Well,
trust.
we know what it does now. I mean,
We do
there
now.
is so much research out there. It's hard to refute, and the fact that there are still doctors that I mean, I don't know, and not all doctors do. I mean, I'm not saying doctors are bad people. There's just good ones and bad ones,
Yeah.
in terms of like, just like,
My husband's a doctor. I love him. I think he's amazing. So
yeah,
there are some great doctors,
exactly, yes,
but it is important, and I really want to make sure to get this message out is
hmm,
just because somebody's a doctor doesn't mean you shouldn't question and ask. And
exactly. I mean, look at
sometimes,
like,
yeah.
we'll look at the East Shore device, right? It wasn't until December of this year, I think it was 2019 or in December, where the
Hmm.
East Shore was finally taken off the market in the US. The US was the last country to take it off the market.
The U.S. is the last country to take anything
Oh
out.
my
It's
god, they're ridiculous.
crazy.
We're the first country to put it on and then the last one to take off. And so
It's
then
insane.
it's
Yeah.
insane. And so every other country had banned it like years before because they showed how
Hmm.
it was causing infections. It was making women have to get unwanted hysterectomies. And
That's
Bayer,
crazy.
who's like sinister, they bought Monsanto, by the way. So now it's Bayer. And they were like, no, like it's fine. We're going to keep it on the market in the US. And all of these doctors were still giving it to women. And finally in December, they took it off the market. And the Bayer's like press conference release was like, we didn't take it off the market because it's an inferior product. We just took it off the market because sales were declining, which is a slap in the
Hmm.
face to all the women who got autoimmune diseases from it, had
Wow. It's
hysterectomies and
crazy.
when they didn't want them. And
Yeah.
it's mind blowing. I don't know. It that they could get away
I'm
with
with
something like
you.
that. And they can't sue them and it was also the device was rushed to get on the market.
Mm-hmm.
which means they got to go through some process. And in order to do that, they have to prove that it's like a life-saving device that needs to get out right then and there. And the only time
Right.
that's ever happened was for like a heart medication. So people are really kind of confused as to why this birth control device made that cut and was the only one of, there's only two devices and medicines that have ever gotten rushed basically to be on the market. And Eshore was one of them. And
Yeah, I mean, there's
yeah,
definitely behind the scenes stuff going on, but
exactly. And then so because of that, it's basically they can't get sued. No one can
got
sue
it.
them for this device. And so there's a class action suit with all the women, but I mean, you know.
I think the best thing to do, because unfortunately we live in the world that we do, and I think the best thing that you can do, and it's actually fairly simple, is to really just educate yourself. You
Yes.
know, educate yourself, see what your options are. There's so many things now, and luckily we do have the internet. I mean, of course, it's like a blessing and a curse. I mean, there's obviously some crazy things that come along with it, but if you really do your research over time, you will be able to see, you know, false information for true information just over time if you
Hmm.
really properly do your research, and also go with a good health practitioner,
I agree.
somebody who really understands how to do things in a simple, easy way that's not invasive. Because why not? You
Exactly.
know, go
Like
easy.
why are the painful periods happening? Let's get to the root cause of that, not silence the symptom. Why is the acne happening? We're so
Right.
lucky as women to have this barometer of health every month. We get to know every month if the food we're putting into our body, the actions we're taking are serving us. That's so cool. And if we're
Yeah,
just turning that off with hormonal birth control pill, then we're not getting that report card every month. And then those problems are just getting worse and worse. And when we get off of it, they're still there, but with a vengeance, you know? So like,
absolutely.
and PMS, leads, you have higher rates of heart disease and Alzheimer's and breast cancer down the road. Wouldn't you want to like start working on those earlier than later?
Right. Totally. You know, it's interesting. I actually had fibroids and they were already too big for me to treat with herbal formulas. And I went to a gynecologist and went to two different ones, and everybody told me to get a hysterectomy. And I was like, I deal with fertility. There's no way I'm getting rid of my uterus.
Yeah.
No way. And I'm like, you know what? They were surprised when I said, I love my periods. I love having my period because there's something about getting my period that I feel such a release and relief. And I feel like it's a cleansing. And I feel like I want to have it up until I don't have it naturally. And I
Exactly.
finally, I researched, and like I said, I didn't know anything at the time. And my husband had mentioned, oh, I think that an interventional radiologist can take care of it. He's an ER doctor. I don't know how, but I guess he knew, and because they deal with completely different issues. And so I researched and looked and went to a bunch of different doctors, even though a lot of them would say the same thing. And that's what I'm saying to the listeners, just do your research, because I finally went and got a very non-invasive treatment, and they're shrinking now, and I get to keep my
Awesome.
uterus.
Yep. Imagine that. It's like our uterus actually serves a function other than childbearing.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
we actually need our hormones. And that's great. I'm so happy that you were able, because of also think about, look, more than the average woman because of your infertility health. So
Hmm.
imagine like just an average, a woman that has nothing to do with that industry and she's going to
Hmm.
the doctor for advice and they tell her to get her uterus removed to treat the fibroids. Like, I mean, she might
Yeah, I
not
mean,
investigate.
but
And
I'll tell you the
she,
truth, even though I know, I still didn't know when it came to Western medicine, because I already tried my approach, and it wasn't working because it was already too big at that point.
Hmm.
So I still didn't know really what Western medicine can do for me. And I just search and search. But, sometimes you do need Western medicine. You can get a non invasive way,
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is
Like there's
great.
one, are you in Canada or
No, no,
US?
Miami Beach, Florida.
Miami Beach. Okay, I don't know why I thought you were in Canada. There's have you heard of Assessa Health?
No.
So they're a new, they're not that new, but there's only like 50 surgeons in the US right now trained in it. And it's a non-invasive way to get rid of fibroids. So you don't have to do the
Oh, that's great.
myomectomy.
That's good. Good to wow.
Yeah, and they go like right inside, like, it's laparoscopic, and they go in, and it's a laser, but it's not like ablation where they're just like going all over the place, and it's very specific. It's to the
Is
area.
it? It's not robotics, is
It
it?
is
Or
robotic. Yeah,
oh, it
it's
is. So maybe
robotic.
that's what it is. Because I did see somebody for that. That did that, and I said, "Oh, let me go see him." That was like a third person, and he's the one who
Yeah.
pointed me to or suggested the radiologist.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell patients, like, I'm like, if once fibroids get to a certain size, sometimes they just need to be removed, and that doesn't mean that you've lost and you're a failure, and what it's like. Sometimes you just need Western medicine, and that's fine, and
Yeah,
that's
I
what
mean,
it's
look
there
at
for.
me. This is what I do for a living, you
Yeah,
know.
and but so I always say, find a surgeon who uses a Sessa Health method, because that's going to be
Hmm.
the least invasive. It doesn't harm the uterus, and then after that, like, then investigate, like, what can I do to prevent more fibroid growth? Like, how can
Exactly,
I support my
exactly.
body in that way? So
That's right. So you could, there's definitely supplements, and like by the time I actually caught up to that and realized that it was too late. It was too late to do with supplements. But yeah, moving forward, then you
mhm.
make new decisions, and that's a very smart thing because obviously you don't want it to come back.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to just keep on going on rotation surgery every few years.
Exactly. No, thank you. So what are the common signs that you see with hormone imbalances? We spoke about like the PCOS specifically, but there's other things that people have.
I mean, there are a lot of different types of imbalances that can manifest. I guess, some of the most, you know, common ones I see, especially in this age, is age. I say, like, a world of, we have so unprecedented toxins in our environment, would be estrogen dominance, because
Hmm.
of all the xenoestrogens and chemicals that
Right.
are in our products or toiletries or household cleansers. And so that builds up in the body, and it confuses the bodies, and the cell receptors don't know how to distinguish your estrogen versus a synthetic estrogen. And
Right.
so that presents with estrogen dominance, and which can, cause like really heavy periods, painful periods,
Fibroids.
fibroids. Yes. And then, also common is progesterone deficiency, because we also live in a world of unprecedented stress. So you have a lot of women who are super stressed, and they're burning the candles at both ends, and
Right.
they're always on, and they're not ovulating, because our bodies will always prioritize survival over, reproduction. And so then they're
100%.
not
Yeah.
having enough progesterone. So they're anxious, and then their adrenals go out of whack. And so you have all these women presenting with these perimenopause symptoms in their 20s. It's like they're not
It's
in
crazy.
perimenopause, but their adrenals are on the fritz. They're not ovulating. And I think
They're
that's
just
just,
imbalanced.
they're just
That's
imbalanced.
it.
And I think that's the main thing that I see in my practice, and a lot of, like, people with, HPA axis dysfunction. They're just burned out.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, we definitely live a crazy life. Like, the pace that we're living at today is definitely a lot more than it ever has been. And personally, what I do is I just wake up a little earlier to meditate like I have to get my meditation, and I think everybody should meditate. That's just
I
I really
agree. I agree. Whether
just
it's like a sitting
yeah,
meditation practice, or a moving meditation, or
yeah, something.
something that and it's funny that you say that, like, you wake up earlier for that. And I just posted about that today on Instagram. I was like, adding in time for self-care. Like, I wake up
Yeah,
earlier. Like today, I woke up a little bit earlier to add in more time for my new moon intentions, because today's a new moon, and to write my intentions, and kind of like have a little sage ceremony. And I was like, it's amazing the things you can do when you get up just a little bit earlier. If you just shift it by
yeah,
30 minutes. And I'm not saying,
definitely.
I'm not saying sacrifice your sleep, because sleep is priority.
Right, that's
So
true.
don't,
Not
like,
if you have like 4 hours of
yeah,
sleep and wake up another hour
yeah,
earlier.
like, please just sleep another hour. My gosh. But,
Yeah.
go to bed at a reasonable time. And instead of sleeping that extra 30 minutes, just get up a little earlier, so you can have that alone time, that meditate, even if it's just 10 minutes of focusing on your breath. And this is especially important for women who have kids and have a lot of demands. Like, don't wake up first thing in the morning and just start giving to your kids. I mean, give to your kids, that's great, but wake up a little bit earlier, so you can have time for you, only you.
Yeah, it's a life changer, like literally will change your life. And so that's what I realized. Like there's nothing I can do about the pace that we're living in. There's just nothing you could do about it. But what you can do, there's nothing you could do to change it. What you can do is actually take that time and make sure, and like without like no compromise, like take that time out for
Yeah.
yourself.
Meditation
Yeah.
is key. I feel like the human race, the only way we're going to make it is if we all adopt a meditation practice. It's the only way.
Without a doubt, like 100%. I completely, I feel like I'm just a much nicer person when I meditate. And what's interesting too is that there's some kind of invisible energy that I think we don't even know. Science hasn't even totally tapped into, although they're tapping into it a little bit. But there's way more than we realize. I think that when you change your frequency, other people are different with you. You interact differently with other people, and other people, like I feel when I meditate, the world is nicer to me.
Yeah, exactly. It just changes everything.
Yeah, completely. So I know that you have to go soon. This was so much fun talking to you. I really enjoyed meeting you.
Yeah,
And
I love chatting. This was so great.
yeah, this is great. We definitely have a lot of things in common of where we've been and what we've discovered and our passions. And of course, I think that once you go through this in your own life, you become so passionate about helping other people because you're like,
Definitely.
everybody should know this. Everyone should know.
Yes, I know. And it's kind of like you just feel like it's like compelled, you know? It's like you would do it.
Yeah.
I feel like if you would do something for free, then you know you're on the right
Yes.
track, right?
I say that all the time. I say that all the time. I say I would do my work for free. That's how much I love it. Like it does not feel like work to me. It's so much fun. And I think that's another thing that's good for your health. Do something that you love. That's very good for your health. I think
Yes.
that's something like you can eat great food, but if you work at a job that sucks you dry, that's not good.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. And I feel like too, if that like intention is pure, right? If what you're doing
Yeah.
is from a pure place, the universe is going to support you in that. If you're in
Yes.
alignment with what you should be doing, and it's like I was talking about this today, because I'm planning this health summit in Houston in 2020, and I just had this idea and I'm like, I've got to do this. And every step of the way has been so easy. Like I needed a venue and someone was like, I
Mm,
can let you use my venue for free. And I was like, what?
yeah.
And it's like, okay, I can't deny it. Like the universe wants me to have this summit, and because it's just falling in
Yes.
place versus like whenever you're meeting this resistance along the way, I have to check myself and be like, is this what I should be doing?
You know what's interesting about what you said about that? Because I believe that if you're doing anything that's in alignment or is serving lots of other people, you get all those other people's guardian angels on your side pushing you forward.
Oh,
It's
I
like
love
you get,
it.
yes.
Oh, I love that. Gives me goosebumps just thinking about that. I totally agree with
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, so many people's like guardian angels or spirit guides or whatever that really want them to witness what you're doing are gonna like help you. It's
Absolutely.
amazing. Yeah, very cool. Oh, so I really enjoyed talking to you. I really like you.
I like you
You're
too. We
cool.
need to chat more often. This was
I
great.
think so. Yeah, definitely. I was like, I feel really happy that I met you. I love this podcast because I feel like I meet so many cool people.
Yeah, I bet that's so great. And you would just get to,
Awesome.
and also you're sharing this information with so many people, and those guardian angels are helping you because they want this message to get out. So,
Yeah, it's juicy. It's fun. When you when
yeah.
you work in something you love, it becomes like juicy and fun, and I love it. So where can people find you?
A great place to find me. Well, my website is jennalongoria.com. That's Jenna Longoria, Longoria.com. And I'm over on Instagram. I'm really active over there at Jenna Longoria Health. So come on over and see me and say hi.
Awesome. And she's also known as the period guru.
That's right, the
I
period
love
guru. If you put that in the
it.
Instagram, that will come up. And I also have a period 101 ebook on my website available for download, a free download. And it gives some actionable steps to kind of, get rid of those painful periods.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jenna, for coming on. This was a lot of fun for me.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It was awesome talking to you.
So that concludes today's episode. You can find all the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to leave a review. Reviews are everything to podcasters. You can find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com. And please be on the lookout for my online course and program. This course has emerged from everything that I've been using for the fertility program I now offer at my office. I wanted to consolidate all of my suggestions and coaching and put it into a form that anyone can purchase and use. It was important for me to encompass key fertility health factors as well as guide you in implementing changes in your routine that are shown to boost fertility while being realistic and user-friendly. I will be offering this course with and without coaching. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com, where you can find the subscription form. I thank you so much for listening in and hope you have a beautiful day.